It's a thrilling moment when the liner Arcadia is being made ready to put to sea. Aboard her on this voyage are 1,200 excited passengers, southward bound for a few glorious weeks of blue skies, brilliant sunshine, and the fascination of visiting strange and romantic places. Yes, they're all set for the perfect holiday. And that's just another way of saying that they're off for a Mediterranean cruise. First, let's take a look round the ship. For a modern liner isn't just a means of transportation. It's more like a luxury hotel, with every possible need catered for, and a sea view in every direction. There's nothing pokey or claustrophobic about this cabin. Plenty of room to move around, and a comfortable bed. Ample cupboard space. Every cabin has hot and cold water, and if the weather gets too hot, the air conditioning or mechanical ventilation systems make sure that all the passengers can enjoy a cool and refreshing night's rest. No holiday is perfect unless you can buy a few presents or luxuries, so the Arcadia has its own shop, or rather store, for here you can buy anything you're likely to need. And if a life on the ocean wave doesn't tempt you to grow a beard or let your hair grow too long, you can still pay that regular visit to the barber shop next door. Every good hotel has its bar, and so too has the Arcadia. But this inviting-looking bar on the promenade deck has one great advantage that won't be found in the finest five-star hotel back home. Once outside the 3-mile limit, drinks and cigarettes are duty-free. But for most passengers, the greatest pleasure just now is to sit back and enjoy the sunshine and sea air up on deck. No one yet feels like rushing into deck games, though all the facilities are well provided. But the ice is broken. You make your first friends. And as England falls further and further away, the ship and its passengers begin to develop a new life of their own. The sea is calm during the summer months, making a smooth and comfortable sailing as the Arcadia steams southwards across the Bay of Biscay to its first port of call. Should there be any tendency of the ship to roll, the modern stabilizing fins are brought into immediate action to restore the Arcadia to an even keel. It was from Lisbon, nearly 500 years ago, that the courageous Portuguese navigator set out on voyages of discovery to India and the East. Vasco da Gama set out from here in 1498 with 4 tiny ships in search of a new sea route to India. Fortunately, his last resting place and monument, the Tower of Belém, survived the earthquake which brought disaster to Lisbon in 1755. Since then, a new, spacious and modern city has arisen, with wide boulevards, dignified squares and impressive classical buildings, of which the world-famous National Theatre, looking out onto the beautiful Rocio Square, is a fine example. Since 1911, Portugal has been a republic, but the monarchy is still commemorated in the Praça da Comércia by a bronze statue to King Joseph. The stately palace of Queluz, with its charming gardens, statues and the like, is another reminder of a gracious bygone age. But Lisbon offers something for every taste. If you fancy your luck, you might feel like a short trip out to the elegant resort of Estoril, with its casino. Here, the lucky number sometimes comes up. Or maybe you'll feel it's more fun to wander among the brightly colored fishing boats at the nearby village of Cascais. Lisbon is nowadays a modern capital. It's difficult to imagine what it must have looked like over 500 years ago when the earliest Portuguese navigators set sail from here and discovered 300 miles out into the Atlantic the tiny island of Madeira, or Island of Wood as they call it. It's easy to see why Madeira is a favorite port of call on cruises. From the moment when the ARCADIA casts anchor and clusters of small boys row alongside offering to dive for silver coins, Madeira never for a moment fails to live up to its reputation as an island paradise. The brilliant dresses of the flower girls who welcome the passengers ashore, the profusion of banana trees and grapevines from which the famous Madeira wine is made, the magnificent scenery, to say nothing of Madeira's own peculiar form of wheel-less transport. The sledges can be propelled by boys or by oxen, and to the tourist are original if slightly bumpy. All these make a trip to Madeira into an unforgettable experience. It seems almost too good to be true when the visit is rounded off with a fiesta and the traditional dancing in the streets. As the ship slips away from the coast of Madeira and sets course eastward towards Gibraltar, a change of mood sets in. For perhaps there's no more solemn and impressive sight on the seven seas than this mighty rock, which guards the 10-mile wide entrance to the Mediterranean. For over 200 years, Gibraltar has been a British possession, and its natural commanding position has made it of immense strategic importance. The rock itself is honeycombed with tunnels and passages. Cave-like openings in the rock face often mask gun emplacements which have helped Gibraltar to withstand her several sieges. Her long history dates from the times of the early Moorish invaders, who built the first fortress and gave the rock its name. Here, too, are buried the dead from the Battle of Trafalgar. It's hard to imagine Gibraltar as a resort, but its streets are filled with interest for the traveller, and the modern Rock Hotel is a sign of its growing attraction as a tourist centre. From Gibraltar, it's a short trip along the Spanish coast to Malaga and another change of mood. Passengers go ashore by launch and find an ancient town, the centre of rich wine-growing country, which, like Gibraltar and the whole of southern Spain, was at one time dominated by the Moors. The impressive cathedral, which towers above the rooftops of Malaga, and many other buildings, especially the Alcazaba, show clearly how deep an influence these early conquerors had on later civilizations. For it's now nearly 500 years since the Moors were driven out of Spain by King Ferdinand. Malaga is the last port of call on the Iberian Peninsula. And as the ARCADIA heads east towards Italy, we settle down to a couple of days of blue seas and sunshine. So it's not surprising that aboard ship things begin to liven up. Don't worry, it's not compulsory to indulge in this kind of pillow fighting. But there's no telling what hidden talents may be brought to light on a Mediterranean cruise. Even sack racing reveals its experts. And if you've never tried your hand at rolling the bottle, it's never too late to begin. It's many centuries since Rome was a port, but no cruise would be complete without a visit to the city which once ruled supreme over the whole Mediterranean. So it's a short road or rail trip before we reach the Eternal City. The Arch of the Emperor Constantine and the nearby Colosseum symbolizes the power and the tyranny of the Roman Empire. For it was beneath these walls that took place the gladiators' fights and martyrdom of the early Christians and the other gory spectacles which provided entertainment for the Roman populace. But with the fall of the empire, Rome came to enjoy a new kind of supremacy as the center of Christendom. At the time of Renaissance, the world's greatest architects, men like Michelangelo and Bernini, designed and built the impressive Church of St. Peter's, with its great square and the twin columns of arches opening out like two arms to welcome the visitor. In the neighboring palace, which overlooks the square, are the apartments of the Pope, guarded by the colorfully dressed Swiss guards. The massive Victor Emmanuel monument marks the achievement of Italian unity in 1870. From Rome's new terminus station, we travel south by train to Naples and Pompeii. Everyone knows the story of Pompeii's catastrophic end. But there's no describing the sense of excitement and wonder one feels in wandering among the streets, houses and temples of this ancient city whose existence beneath the deep layers of volcanic ash and dust was for centuries unknown. Now the town has been largely excavated, and it's possible to see it as it was during those fateful days when its life was brought to a sudden stop by the eruption of Vesuvius. South of Naples, the coastline is broken up by bays and rocky promontories, behind which lie charming villages with their sheltered beaches and clear blue waters. It's easy to see why these are such popular resorts. And for the sun-starved Britisher, each new view is like a vision of paradise. In earlier times, this whole coastline was dominated by the once powerful town of Amalfi, where a fine cathedral still survives to mark its almost forgotten glory. A short sea trip across the Straits of Sicily brings us to Messina, the starting point for new excursions along the magnificent Sicilian coast. It's the lucky holidaymaker who can manage to relax under such perfect conditions. Small wonder that the ancient Greeks chose these parts to settle. The small town of Taormina was once a Greek colony, and it's still possible to see the vast amphitheatre which was built by the early settlers over 2,000 years ago. From Messina, we put to sea again for a couple of days, northward bound for our last port of call in Italy, Venice, bride of the sea. City of gondolas and canals, built on the shores of numerous lagoons. the entrance to the Grand Canal lies the Palace of the Doges, to remind us of the centuries during which Venice was an independent republic. Grand Canal itself is the city's main road, lined with the palaces of the Venetian noble families, spanned by graceful bridges. And at the heart of Venice lies the square of St. Mark's. It's difficult to say which is more famous, the pigeons or the almost oriental cathedral, with its many domes, its richly ornamented facade, and its glittering gold and silver mosaics. Venice is the last of the Italian towns visited by the ARCADIA on the cruise. But the cruise is not over yet, and as the ship prepares to move off, maneuvering down the channel through the lagoons, there's still much of the Mediterranean to be seen. From Venice, we may sail down the Adriatic to the ancient Ionian Islands, to Corfu, famous since mythological times, or westwards to Majorca, the island paradise chosen as a home by Chopin. Everywhere there'll be strange towns to visit, new and wonderful sights to be seen. For this is the meaning of a Mediterranean cruise. It was on these coasts that the civilization of Europe was born and grew. Venice, Rome, Corfu, Gibraltar. Each has played its part, and each has its own unique history. And what better way to visit them than in the comfort of a cruise liner? What better way of combining interesting travel with comfort, relaxation, and entertainment? For the blue waters of the Mediterranean are matched by its blue skies. And it is here that thousands of our holiday makers go each year to make sure of the sun.